Welcome back to another video where today we're going to be doing a 2-year review on my Bison flip back hard tonneau cover. So if you've looked at my channel, I have some previous reviews on this tonneau cover and I've had it now for about 2 years. And I have an install, I have a 6-month and a 1-year review, and now that I've had this for just over 2 years, I wanted to do another review here and really go over how I think this thing is holding up and touch on some of the features and some of the areas I thought would possibly be a problem as this cover got a little bit older. So overall, the cover's still in pretty good shape, but what I did notice is we had a hail storm and the cover took quite a bit of a beating from the hail, which is a bit upsetting because this is supposed to be a pretty hard aluminum and it shouldn't dent up as easy as it did. So some of these pins here that it's hit are actually pretty deep. They haven't pierced the surface, but it's definitely a bit concerning for the aluminum. One of the areas that I pointed out in a previous video that I thought would be a problem over time was this rubber seal here when you fold the cover back. So looking at the back portion here, it's not bad. You can see the wear lines of where it folds, but the main one that's become the problem is the first fold here. So like I suspected, over time from opening the cover and closing the cover, it started to actually crack the rubber seal here, and what it's doing is it's holding water now on the inside and it's getting stuck just before the rail, so it's not making its way into the rail system to drain out. All the mechanisms though, they have held up pretty good here. So all the pull cords, everything along those lines, I've had no issues with any of those items. The inside of the cover has done pretty well too. Like I've mentioned previously, I've got a few dings on the inside because I have the back of my truck full sometimes with a lot of stuff in it. So sometimes they're just on top of the cover. So a couple of the dings on the inside are definitely from the items that I carry, but the dings on the outside are definitely from the hailstorm I received. And like I mentioned, it's pretty upsetting how easy it dung up from the hail. The rails overall have been good. I haven't had any concern with them. Same with the holdbacks here for keeping the cover locked open. I've used it a few times. They're still locking into position on both sides of the rail system here, which is good. The drains on the front are still working pretty good. I haven't had any issues with them down here or even on that one there. But I definitely think they need to do an update to this design and add an additional 2 drains on the back portion here. So the inside of the rail here is starting to push its way towards the back, and what it's done is there was 2 clips, one on this side, one on this side, that have been forced out, and I've lost them because the inside of the rail here is spring loaded and it's starting to push itself away, and it's knocked both of those out and they're gone now. So what's happening is any water that's getting stuck now in the rail is not dead ending and forcing its way back. It's just coming out in the bottom of the box here. So it would be nice to have an additional update to this design and have drains put in on the back portions of the rails here. The hardware in the mounting clip, I haven't needed to do any adjustments. None of those have come loose over time, which is great. You see that once in a while with some of these cheaper systems is over time these nuts and these bolts start to loosen themselves back off, and then the rails will start to shift or come apart on you. But if you are looking for a tonneau cover, this is definitely one of the cheapest options for you. So this one, when I got it, was about $800. And looking at something like a G2, you're almost double that price. So one of the other things I've noticed though is the cover is started to leak a little bit more than when I first got it. So I have leaking on these 2 corners, which I know is because the rails are starting to push themselves away from the front of the rail system. But I do end up with some leaking through the connections where the bottom drain clamps onto the actual rail system. On heavier rains, rain is making its way past and not into the drain, and it definitely fills up the corners of the box, and depending how my truck is parked, it either will all push forward or push back. So I definitely need to be a little bit more cautious when I'm carrying stuff that shouldn't be getting wet inside my box. So for someone that's not carrying a lot of items all the time in their box, this is definitely a good option. But for someone that's carrying a lot of building materials, wood, drywall, things like that inside of your box, you definitely want to be a bit more cautious with this, leaving it overnight or during the daytime if it's raining, because if the cover starts to leak, you're going to damage those materials on the inside. But I'm going to say overall, for the price that you're going to get this cover for, it's definitely still worth buying. But you definitely want to be a bit more cautious on what you're carrying inside your truck bed. You need to set those expectations with a cover like this compared to going with something on the more expensive side like a G2. Overall, I definitely think my main critique with this system is they should do an update to the design. They should add the additional drains here on the back. One more on the rear here and one more on the rear there. I think that would solve a lot of the problems that this cover has when it comes to letting water inside of the bed. Looking at the folding rubber here, I've also started to notice that at the very ends here where the cover actually folds, it's starting to force itself out. So I think, again, this is going to be one of those things where over time in the next year, maybe 2 years, I think I'm going to start getting leaking between all my rubber lines here in between the 3 panels. So as soon as this rubber starts to let go here on the inside, any water that sits on the cover, I think is going to migrate its way into the little cracks here, and that will definitely be an additional leak point on this cover. And we've got 3 functions of rubber here on the rear and then 1 more up here. So when they all start to let go, I think this is something that will let water through each portion of the cover. But definitely overall, I do think this cover is still worth buying at the price range it's at, depending on what your needs are. So if you've got any questions about this cover, definitely leave me a comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.